All right, so you brought a jar of marmalade from the Bitcoin conference you went to.
The strategic Bitcoin preserve.
Milo can't try it because he's like got some kind of dental work in.
Yeah, exactly.
His veneers.
I'm now going to try the first official Bitcoin decentralized marmalade that's ever been made.
Mm-hmm.
Talk me through it.
It's very lemony.
Bitter.
It's so lemony. Is that a tenet of decentralized cryptocurrencies?
The less it gets away from the central currency, the more lemony it gets, of course.
Yeah. Oh, you're a sugar cell? I bet. Have fun being poor with your fiat currency.
Yeah. It says it contains organic sugar, organic Seville oranges, and organic lemon.
Mm-hmm.
But you're getting a lot of lemon. It smells a bit like Lemsip.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to pass it over to Ed.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it again. When I tried it after the Bitcoin conference, I was like, I don't know if I don't like this marmalade or I don't like marmalade. That was something I was trying to ascertain.
It's quite an old man food, marmalade.
I feel like a baby in a pot. I'm eating this
Big spoonful you've got there. That's so much marmalade. That's like a whole slice of toast worth of marmalade.
Listener Ed Campbell has just eaten what I can only describe as a tablespoon of cryptocurrency themed marmalade and is currently engaged in a great deal of grimacing.
It was not.
It's really not designed to be consumed in that way.
Well, I mean, because there used to be something about like you would do if you were doing like endurance training, like before the age of like everything's a supplement and all that hyper optimized shit. It was just like, yeah, you kind of you sort of have your marmalade before you kind of go for a big run or something. Or not marmalade jam, but I guess it's a similar thing. I guess the question I was also thinking about was just like, yeah, like was there also like a kind of Paddington on the Bitcoin type of situation at the conference? Is that the reason for the marmalade? Because it feels like a very odd thing to give out as a freebie.
It wasn't free. I paid for it.
Do you know what I mean?
I paid £5 for this.
You paid for it,
and also I thought it was quite a fun souvenir. To have.
What else was on offer?
So this person was selling just like farm shop goods, and this was the only obviously Bitcoin product. She was also selling like beef drippings, jam, chili
Bitcoin
jam.
beef drippings.
no, just normal.
Beef drippings, that's totally in the realm of something Bitcoin people would be interested in because they have this huge ideological fascination with using beef tallow in place of like seed oils and stuff.
Yeah.
But this woman was quite like, she looked normal. That's all I can say. Like, whatever you're imagining of like hyper crypto, bro, this woman was not that person.
She's like, I'm going to rip off some nerds.
No, also not that. She was ultimately, because I had to go and get cash out because she only took cash or crypto. And I didn't have any crypto to give her.
Cash or crypto, like that fucking bar we went to in Berlin that time.
Yes.
And she also very kindly started to show me how I could quickly get some cryptocurrency. And I was like, it's so much easier for me if I just go and get some cash out now.
That's such an annoying transaction.
They now just have some cryptocurrency. And I'm a pound man currently in my day-to-day life.
You're a pound cell.
Yeah,
you're a pound.
Unfortunately,
you're fiat maxing.
Fish out of water.
Yeah,
that's right.
At the Bitcoin conference, I was disappointed to learn. I thought there might be like a giveaway, and each 1 in 10 jars maybe has like a Bitcoin in it. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Roughly,
it's a very valuable jar of marmalade.
If you catch it with your teeth, you'll have luck until next Christmas.
Each jar of marmalade has to cost at that point like anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000.
Yes,
depending on what the value of Bitcoin is at the time.
Yep.
You there, boy? What day is this?
Why, it's the day of the annual Bitcoin conference.
Jars of marmalade for all. It's a strange phenomenon. Hi everybody, welcome to TF. It's we got Ed Campbell in the studio today. I believe first time on TF.
First time, previous long time listener.
Yes.
Yeah. Previous Britanology guest.
Yes. If you don't worry, if you're listening, they will eventually ask you on. That's what happens.
Yeah, we have all. I promise. We're gonna get to all of you.
Yeah, you're like the podcasting equivalent of the guy that married Margot Robbie by just like working as like a low rank producer on film.
He's just there. I'm hanging around.
Yeah.
And look, I put together some news today, but before we get into talking about Ed's adventure in yet another Bitcoin conference at a time where crypto prices are tumbling, because there's always two kinds of Bitcoin conferences. There's the retreat retrenchment conference where you went, where they're all telling themselves about why this is just another great buying opportunity. And then there, of course, are the bull market conferences where, they're essentially just doing victory lap after victory lap and gloating. But before we talk about the retrenchment conference, Hussein, you found something, and then I found some more things about it that I'd like to wildly speculate about. Can you please tell us about the trailer that you sent all of us for the film? The film that you can describe.
Every so often, you just come across something very cursed on your sort of like YouTube algorithmic, like your recommendations. So this is like, I want to preface by saying this is my fault, right? Because I sort of have like one of my unfortunate hobbies is that I like to lurk on like right-wing podcast accounts. I sort of claim that it's for work, but like a lot of it is just kind of a lot of it's like really bizarre stuff. So like a lot of it is for work actually, because so much
you're
of what
on
we
the
talk
trigonometry
about,
Patreon.
I am. Well, not quite the Patreon, but like I may as well be the amount of times like Konstantin Kissin's face is recommended to me.
What, like as an option for surgery? Like go to Turkey and come back looking like Konstantin Kissin?
Well, I mean, look at his face recently. It's like you wouldn't, he could very well pass off as both a Turkish barber and the
women
victim
will
of a
be
Turkish
constantly
barber.
kissing you if you get the Konstantin Kissin surgery.
Just as a sidebar, like their sort of fucking thumbnails on their YouTube videos are really like something else. Like I would definitely recommend listeners just don't watch any of the videos, but just look at like what they have done to their thumbnails to like make themselves look more chiseled and more Chad. And it's just like it's really bizarre. But anyway, like as a result of this, I end up getting recommended a lot of like stuff in the right wing kind of like media podcasting space, and then just like stuff adjacent to it.
Meanwhile, I've just been doing my research bit, and I pulled up the trigonometry YouTube thumbnails, and I can see what you mean about the sort of the chiseled Konstantin aesthetic. Whereas Francis Foster is looking increasingly like the sort of like the, is it Eddie the Eagle? What's that guy?
Sam the Eagle. It's fucking Francis Foster got the droopy dog surgery and Konstantin Kissin got the Chad jaw. Like they both went to Turkey to go in wildly different directions.
Foster looks like Nigel Farage fucked Sam the Eagle, and he is the sort of perverse offspring of that union.
He looks like, what are the people in the Grinch called? The
Who's?
The Who's. Yeah, he looks like a Who.
Oh my God.
If you mention Konstantin Kissin to anyone normal, they'll go, who?
Yeah, that's right.
Who.
All I'll say is justice for Francis Foster in this very limited way, because I feel like the AI software that like they're using to sort of like render their thumbnails is designed specifically to make Konstantin look like really chiseled and like hench. But as a result, like it ends up kind of doing a massive disservice to Francis, who just ends up looking more like a sad, droopy dog.
Do you think they're in a like substance type scenario where Konstantin Kissin is like when you're on the substance, and Francis Foster is like when you have to have the week off?
There must be balance.
So I come across this trailer, and this trailer is called Rotherham, right? And it's presented as like a trailer for a film. And I was like, at the time, because the thumbnail was so small, I was like, like, are they like, what on earth is this? And I thought it was going to be similar to like the Daily Wire when they first started making movies, and they were like, but like the films were sort of like, they were bad films, but they were films with actual people in it. And I was like, okay, like this might be an interesting way to go. Like, is this kind of like American money going into sort of making like British culture war stuff, just making like slop for us, but in this sort of like, high production sense? No, this video is entirely AI. And it's an AI trailer, and it's supposed to sort of depict the sort of Rotherham grooming gang scandal. But the reason why I thought this was both horrifying and interesting and bizarre is because, well, number one, it's like a completely AI like rendered, which is to say that like it comes entirely from the imagination of kind of like right-wing losers in there. It's sort of a reflection of their paranoid fantasies, and very like it's very kind of like creepy and perverted in many like there's a lot of focus on like this AI rendered schoolgirl who, as with all sort of AI content made by like older men, really does a lot to sort of like sexualize her. But it's like this video is like this mixture of these guys being incredibly horny for this schoolgirl and also like their own racial paranoid fantasies. So like in between like these clips of the AI schoolgirl kind of of getting lured into, you know, the grooming gangs and stuff, like these kind of pictures of, but well, there's a depiction of like a South Asian police officer.
There's a South Asian police officer who at the very end, it's like the AI generated narrator is like, and you'll never guess how deep it goes. That the South Asian police officer like opens the door, and then, you know, a smile with
like Joker face.
The wrong amount of teeth just slowly spreads across his face.
Exactly. And also all the sort of like South Asian characters who are kind of presented as the villains in this all have these like devilish, like what you call like Aphex Twin, like cover like grins.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's obviously just like, it's really derivative and very dull in one way, but in another way, it's just like, oh no, this is kind of, you know, and their crowd, and like whoever's making this is trying to crowdfund this film. But it's like, I don't want to like, maybe I don't know whether we want to give a name or not for it, because it's like a fairly small account.
I do want to give the name for it, only because I actually looked into what, but the trailer itself is bizarre. I don't encourage you to go watch it, but it's like this, they seem to be setting up a British version of Taken that is set in the fantasy of Rotherham, that contains also a London Overground train derailing, which I guess it would have derailed quite substantially to get to Rotherham.
Yeah.
But it also suggests that Sadiq Khan rules the north now, which is also every potential consumer of this trailer's worst nightmare.
And it has as well, again, over the sort of the man finding the father, you know, like the George C. Scott of this situation, finding the house with the groomers in it getting dragged away by like the woke police or whatever, setting up the like one man with a clash against the state and like the immigrants. All of it is soundtracked to a kind of sad movie trailer version of You Spin Me Right Round.
Also, that's an absurdly sexual song. Like to be like, you spin my head right and when you go down. So like, is it the soundtrack from like the perpetrator's view? Like it's such an inappropriate. Like, I'm not sure they put much thought into that.
You can only hope not.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we've long said AI is the aesthetic of fascism, because you can make it is the mass distributed ability to make a kind of good enough for someone who's ideologically committed to it movie about like the paranoid racial fantasies of Rotherham, right? The AI is good enough that you can just sort of make it if you are a YouTube channel with 200 subscribers. And if you can just go like, I don't know, get attention in Elon Musk's mentions, he'll give you however much, like the couple $1,000s you might need to just run enough prompts for a long enough time to do, you know, make like a 20-minute movie that people will watch all up and down the country and say, oh, this would be banned in the UK while watching it. But the thing is, it's made by a company called Unhinged Labs. The only other version of that I could find is a company in Las Vegas that makes masks for guys with beards that's called the Formal Badass Mask.
That's a 2017 Twitter screen name if ever I heard one. Yeah.
Now, it's the only other Unhinged Labs I could find, but I do know that someone who makes something called the Formal Badass Mask might be interested in Rotherham. The Americans love it. So I wonder if this is someone who started making like enamel pins on Etsy and then pivoted to like being sort of obsessed with Britain in the way that only American ultra conservatives can be.
You'll be shocked at how deep this goes. I just wanted to highlight one of the comments on the trailer that I really enjoyed is one that just simply said, "This should be shown in schools."
Yeah.
See, do you know what I think they've actually picked up on something there. Yeah. Genuinely, this is an example of the only way to get something done politically in the UK now is to make a touching drama about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
The post office scandal, Adolescence, both of those things, which are like TV dramas, prompted national level conversations. And obviously, I do not think there should be like a racist Taken fantasy made by AI to prompt like a discussion about the grooming gang scandal. I don't think that's like an appropriate vehicle or something we should be.
Woke has infected the Trash Future guests now. This is a sad day.
Reporting. Yeah. But like they are just mimicking what they've seen. They've seen like Alan Bates get his payout and being like, well, how do I do that? How do I make sure that something is done?
They're trying to make adolescence for the Nigel Farage era. They're trying to get out ahead of the inevitable coming Farage regime, but we're going to get out what our version of adolescence is.
Yeah. Well, I think I was looking on the website, which they're trying to sort of fundraise on. It's called FilmT. And FilmT says, great films no longer need Hollywood gatekeepers. AI has opened up cinema quality filmmaking to everyone, but getting funded is still tough. So we built FilmT to fix that. FilmT connects filmmakers directly with backers to fund and turn trailers into real films. No gatekeepers, just filmmakers and supporters. But how it works. Upload a trailer, and then it explains, use AI to create a short trailer that brings your idea to life. And then that's how you sort of get fun. So the idea, I suppose, is about the AI trailers are used as a proof of concept for what you want to do. But the thing about this trailer is that it can only exist as an AI film in the sense that this is very much entirely a fantasy created by these kind of from the right. That itself to me is quite interesting just in terms of what this trailer is sort of supposed to do, what it tells us about the momentum, the way in which this type of scandal, which is it's a very, very deep scandal, and is also one where it's just whenever we've talked about it, one of the things that is very, very evident is this most of the reason why this hasn't sort of been uncovered in the way that it ought to is probably because it implicates the police a lot more than you would think it would be, right? It's genuinely the information that you get in terms of how police kind of have even treated these cases before is genuinely horrifying. So you can only imagine what the stuff that hasn't come out is like. So it is impossible to do something like this purely because we sort of know where blame really is. And so the result is just that these scandals will kind of just be subject to the sort of rampant racial fantasies of right-wing lunatics online that nevertheless get channeled into mainstream politics.
That, and of course also the absolutely wonderful portrayal of the girl's door that her dad mournfully looks at that contains what can only be described as macaroni art from beyond reckoning. She appears to have drawn...
There's a balloon on the door.
There's a balloon, a fully blown up balloon taped to the door. There is happy birthday, and then sort of the letter G and some splotches sort of also duct taped to the door, as well as what appears to be a pufferfish wearing a bathing suit. So again, brilliant stuff by the AI slop community. Congratulations to FilmT for so far creating the platform to fund and propagate further racial nonsense. I look forward to it becoming a company with a royal warrant soon. Anyway, look, we spent 21 minutes on something I wanted to just note. So I want to move on. I want to move on to what we're actually here to talk about. That is, of course, Bitfest, crypto, and so on. I want to start, though, before we talk about Ed's.
More marmalade?
I want to start by having more of the marmalade that I don't like very much. I did a little review of some old friends associated with the sector. And guess what? Bitfest 2025 actually had a little dust up with an old friend of ours in the crypto sector, the self-appointed sheriff of Bedford, the owner of Real Bedford, the Bitcoin football team impresario, Peter McCormack.
Super.
So if you don't recall, Peter McCormack, in addition to taking over a sort of struggling local football team with some of his crypto money, assisted, of course, by the Winklevoss twins, because it seems like buying a struggling British football team near the bottom of the football pyramid and then trying to turn it into a story for whatever ideological hobby horse you're trying to beat appears to now be a relatively common thing for American rich guys to do.
We could have done it. This was an idea I came up with many years ago to buy a Thamesmead FC.
Yeah.
Which was and I think still is quite cheap. And the whole purpose of it was it wasn't even to create a story. It was just so that we could make a t-shirt. That was it. That's all we wanted to do.
It could have been Trashmead FC versus the Bedford Bitcoin Warriors or whatever. Yeah.
They would have hated us, but it would have been fine.
What we'd lack in money, we'd make up for in heart, I suppose, I guess.
In riffs.
Yeah, exactly. We'd be like, look, we can't pay you more, but we can offer you a discount on shirts.
Yeah.
So what happened? Peter McCormack, the host of What Bitcoin Did, still don't know what Bitcoin did, interviewed none other than, of course, Tommy Robinson.
Oh.
Of course, you need to talk to on a decentralized currency channel.
Well, they're both Bedfordshire boys. You know, I can understand
rival football fans.
Yeah.
Bedford hate Luton.
Crikey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Tommy Robinson kind of hates Luton in a way.
So McCormick had been due to attend Bitfest UK in Manchester, but told his followers that the invitation had since been revoked. He later clarified this decision had been reversed, with organizers asking him to speak on the topic of free speech. So basically, he interviews Tommy Robinson for his Bitcoin podcast.
Sure.
Bitfest UK is like, oh, don't want to be associated with Tommy Robinson. Says, hey, you can't come here if you're going to interview Tommy Robinson. And then presumably all of the staunch libertarians in Bitfest UK were like, whoa. You definitely can come here if you've interviewed Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, how dodgy do you have to be when the Bitcoin people are distancing themselves from you? Like, that really feels
they're not,
like...
though.
Well, yeah, no, not ultimately, but for them to even consider it feels like a big move from them.
So McCormick also said, countering any claim that Tommy Robinson is anything but a stand-up guy just looking for the future of his country, who's loved by all races and creeds, said, on my way to the studio, Tommy was stopped by a Sikh man who thanked him and said he was proud to be British, does not like where the country is headed, and thanked Tommy for what he's doing. Tommy embraced him, listened to him, and showed him respect. That is not the behavior of a racist.
This is one of Hussein's remarkable young man tweets.
Yeah.
That's not the behavior of a racist.
No.
Of
course.
The local Sikh man in Bedford?
The one
he was there.
The one Sikh guy who you got to get his endorsement before you get before you get the marmalade. You have to get his endorsement.
Yeah. I'm gonna get "This is not the behavior of a racist" printed on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And then maybe they could bring out a sort of Bitcoin chutney to prove how committed they are to multiculturalism.
So this is, of course, obviously something that because that happens all the time, right? You know, you're sort of stopped and vindicated from the beliefs of your critics by private interactions that occur in the street that you report on later.
Yeah, conveniently.
Yeah. I was actually told by a passing HMRC inspector in the street that I paid my taxes in full. He embraced me and said this was not the behavior of someone engaging in a Panama paper style avoidance scheme. The Real Bedford team, though.
Is he actually calling them Real Bedford?
It's Real Bedford.
It's Real Bedford.
It's an amalgamation of two previous teams, I think. There was Bedford United and Bedford Town, say, and I think he bought both of them and amalgamated them. So there is a bit of disquiet amongst you wouldn't like it if your rival, if you're suddenly having to cheer on a different football team.
I guess if your team is called Bedford United and you're being involved in a project to unite the various teams of Bedford, it's sort of hard for you to object on a kind of ideological basis.
Well, that makes him now the king of Bedford because it's the Royal Bedford team.
Yeah, true. Real Bedford is so
stupid
name.
But this is also something that you're wearing a football shirt at the time.
I am.
Is as more American private equity funds buy British football teams, because they're just so used to running their businesses in a certain kind of way. There's this repeated motif of them trying to combine all the football teams in given towns and to roll them all into one team. And they're just but all of these people fucking hate each other.
It's also, it just smacks of not liking football.
Yeah.
Just being famous football, Real Madrid, Real Bedford. It's so route one, there's no nuance. I'm
they play at the Burner Bedford.
And then there's a different conversation. But English football, British football has such a rich history, and the names behind teams are so interesting, and have developed over hundreds of years in some cases, 150 years probably max. But just being it is like Beckham going to Inter Miami, and that's because that's America. That's a brand new team. But just taking we are Barcelona Bedford, we are Bayern Munich Bedford. It's so dumb.
What about AC Crington Stanley? How about that?
Yeah, I think Bayern Bedford would be a very interesting merger of two regions.
But it's stupid.
Yeah, but this is, in this case, Sheffield United is owned by an American private equity firm, and they're looking at purchasing their rival club, amalgamating them into one combined Sheffield club. Yeah, this is happening again.
That is but they're on a much bigger scale. Sheffield's so much bigger than Bedford. You can kind of get away with because they're non-league teams.
Yeah.
But Sheffield, you can't do that in Sheffield.
We have got to bring back football hooliganism. It's the only solution. We have got to make it so untenably violent that A, it will be impossible to merge two teams, and also that Americans will be scared of buying a football 100%. Team in the first place. People need to be throwing batteries at each other. We need to bring back bottling. Someone needs to fight a police horse.
See in the 80s when English clubs clubs were banned from Europe.
Yeah.
And we need to do that again. We need to, there needs to be such a disreputation for English football clubs that they, like, all these foreign investors just give up.
That's what I call hard Brexit.
You know what I think you're sort of creating the outlines for? Maybe we could make like the AI generated movie trailer for this and like put it up on FilmT to compete with, as from what I can tell, is the only I think Rotherham's the only AI generated movie trailer on FilmT. Like if you search YouTube, it's the only thing referencing it. You know, but we could maybe make a rival one where we do like a kind of reverse Scooby-Doo where all of any British football club overall, that's sort of not sufficiently expensive that it can be taken over in a private equity roll-up. You know, they get like sort of, it creates some kind of hooligan ghost story to frighten off the owners when they come and tour the grounds.
That's a good idea. Just violent graffiti is one person.
Yeah.
Just like a string of associates. Like, have you heard of the Bedford Boys?
Yeah, exactly.
Like smashing up, they're using fiat currency.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get to Bitfest, I want to revisit one other old friend, because remember Kwasi Kwarteng, they're calling him the king of timing. I've been following this. I got a bit of a spidey sense to look into him before we talk today. That Kwasi Kwarteng, and this sort of leads us into the Bitcoin conference discussion. Again, this is from an FT article. Kwarteng, who kept a relatively low profile since his month-long stint as chancellor in 2022.
A beautiful sentence.
Love that. Told the FT he's set to become a non-executive director of Stack Bitcoin Treasury, a so-called treasury company that's set to launch in London by the end of the year. To remind everyone here, a crypto treasury company is a company that basically just, as a publicly traded company, it's listed on a stock exchange that does nothing but hold Bitcoin. And it's a way to just buy Bitcoin, but like in a stocks and shares ISA, for example, because you're just buying a company whose thing is it buys Bitcoin. So this is just a Bitcoin trade. MicroStrategy, now called Strategy, is the most famous of these, where they just sort of gave up on making software and just started buying Bitcoin. So Kwarteng said, as politicians, we talked all the time about enterprise and growth, and it's quite fun getting involved with the coalface of this industry, which is, again, just issuing stock, using the money to buy Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin goes up, more people buy into the company, so you can issue more stock to buy more Bitcoin. It's that thing where it has all the dynamics of a Ponzi scheme, but because everything it's doing is legal, it's a legal Ponzi scheme. That's what the Bitcoin treasury companies are, right? Because again, it's like you just get more people in, so long as the asset keeps going up, that's fine. But as soon as it starts going down, you're forced to sell it to keep the price up. And so all of a sudden you spiral down with all the same sort of force dynamics that caused you to spiral up. So Kwasi Kwarteng is now a non-executive director of one of these. It was a company incorporated by the same guy who made the like Nigel Farage terrified old people gold hawking company.
Bullion Direct.
Yeah, Direct Bullion, in fact. Yeah, Paul Withers is the guy. So Paul Withers has pivoted to crypto with the UK's most trusted and beloved chancellor,
Bill's brother. Do you reckon they thought, well, you know, obviously these kind of legal crypto Ponzi schemes, they are at risk of this kind of sudden and really steep downward spiral. So we're going to need to bring in a man who knows all about being in one of those, Kwasi Kwarteng.
Yeah, quite. So he's now just posting about it on Twitter all the time, and he says, with Bitcoin, there's quite a lot of conferences and the like that I'll have to go to. So that's going to be what his job mostly is going to conferences and saying, all of the things that you say at Bitcoin conferences to reassure people into keeping their Bitcoin or encourage other people into buying Bitcoin.
He's going to be eating more marmalade than Paddington Bear.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like all these, by the way, there's currently a sort of pretty significant downturn in the price of Bitcoin that's been happening in the last month. So all these treasury companies are taking a gigantic shit right now, just in time for Kwasi Kwarteng. I think Kwasi Kwarteng has a thing where he can only be involved in a venture for 1 month.
I can believe that.
It's like Brigadoon.
Yeah, like a bunch of like the stupider treasury companies are like might zero at some point. This is not financial advice. Where these companies, like they'll have done something at some point. Like one is a Florida-based life sciences company used to call it, it used to be a company. Now it's called ETHZilla and just exists to buy Ether. That's all. And now they're like, oh shit, we used to do something, then we traded in doing something for being this Ponzi scheme. Legal Ponzi scheme, not illegal. And now the thing is crashing. Same thing for Sequans Communications, which used to be a French semiconductor company, now just owns a lot of Bitcoin.
Amazing.
Yeah. But then again,
Zilla really is a fantastic name because ether and God don't rhyme at all. And they've really just thought, we'll just put Zilla on the end.
It's a bit like Real Bedford.
It is.
Yeah.
Zilla's big.
God's ether would actually work better.
That does sound better.
Yeah.
Zilla is a more distinctive suffix. I guess.
Yeah, gods would sort of you don't say, if you want to call something big, you don't say like, oh, it's gods this, because that just sounds sort of religious. And with the Z, it's sort of religious, but for the 90s.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So I think ETHZilla, I'm afraid we're
no, it's ETHZilla.
The problem is
it's destroying the Tokyo Stock Exchange.
Real Bedford, we hate ETHZilla because Bitcoin maxis hate everyone who does anything with any other coin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they would each one would consider the other's name to be hack and derivative, but they would hate each other. And at the same time, who would have guessed this? A lot of the meme coins that the Trump family used to, let's say, amass a huge amount of bribes at the beginning of the Trump administration appear to be down. The Trump meme coin down at 86%. The Melania meme coin down a shocking 99%. I really thought that they would add more utility.
My meme coin is worth so much more than Melania's.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. If you stick with me, you'll be better off than with Melania.
That's a great way to settle an argument to spouses, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just to release meme coins and see
meme coin is most valuable.
Yeah, see who gets a bigger market cap.
I guess if you're president of the United States, that's probably a more useful thing to say than my meme coin.
Like World Liberty Financials down 40%. This is one of the many users discussing the stock on Reddit investing forums last month, self-identified as a DJT bag holder, this is a bag holder for his media communications company, who bought at $46 a share. The stock is now trading at $11. And I'm saying this only for the screen name of the guy who's asking this, because that's a great screen name. And then we're going to go into the actual conference. Reddit user Simple-Minded Hatter asked,
that's good. I like the idea of a hatter who's not mad, but they are just a bit slow, and therefore the mercury hasn't actually affected them.
The stupid hatter,
just making hats just a bit badly, or maybe actually quite well, but they've just got they can't take the business further. They don't have any vision.
The Green Mile Hatter asked, when do I give up on move on? Yeah. So all of this is surrounded by crypto generally being in a huge downturn, and it is in this environment.
Post you'd get on Mumsnet about someone's like really shit husband, but on the equivalent male forum, which is fucking Bitcoin, they're just talking about when you should move on from your Trump meme coin.
So Ed, you went to Bitfest.
I did.
Tell me about it.
Bitfest. So I was expecting, in the context of the crypto downturn in general, I think at the end of October, one Bitcoin was worth, I think it was a record, like $126,000. And day I went, which was about 2 or 3 weeks later, it was worth, I think it was about $84,000. So it lost $40,000 in value in like 1 month. So I was expecting like Wall Street in 1929, like people just like crashing out.
See, we got it. You want this marmalade, boy?
Man wearing a barrel with the Bitcoin logo on it.
But a guy's shooting his stupid accomplice. Simple-minded hatter. He's killed one too many rabbits.
Eat the marmalade, boy. But it was, I think, in contrast to like most kind of Bitcoin conferences. For example, there's one in Madeira, which what's the guy who found a Twitter called Jack Dorsey. Mm-hmm. Jack Dorsey goes to this one. This one is almost
it's got better wine,
basically. But I think this one is like a reaction to that. It was founded by some people who do not like the kind of the crypto bro conference. I think the theme of this is like it's like the lifestyle and the philosophy of Bitcoin.
But what is the lifestyle of Bitcoin other than attending Bitcoin conferences?
It's about freedom. It's about libertarianism. It's about the abolition of the state, of the financial systems, and it can bleed into all parts of your life. Like I spoke to one of the organizers who told me that he spends 95% of his time thinking about Bitcoin. In a way that I don't really understand how that can manifest.
What is the other 5% in his estimation?
Breathing, shitting. Like what if he's late for his Bitcoin conference? He might think about traffic.
But then you'd think, what if there's a market solution to this? Involved?
Well, what if there's a market solution that involves like people? I remember we talked about this years ago, like a market solution that involves people like bidding on green lights. Using crypto, like you could say, how much is it worth for my car to pass through unimpeded, and then you put up your bid per light, and then you just get all green lights until someone who makes a higher bid passes in front of you.
You get a traffic light whale. It's like really like thumbing the scale of the market.
But I think there's an interesting real mix of sort of right-wing libertarians, so kind of like real crunchy hippie people, kind of old school like crypto guys who kind of wished it was still cool, who wished it was still worth a penny, and it was all about we're trying something exciting. I met two guys who say they were behind sort of the earliest iterations of the Rare Pepe meme, and they were
claim to fame.
And there was so much going on, and you know when you're having a conversation with someone and you're like, oh, I actually don't even have the base level knowledge of what you're talking about to continue with this. Like I've done my research about like Bitcoin, etc., and I was expecting it to be more conventional conversations, but I ended up having to defend the existence of a state more often than I sort of thought.
I was so convinced you were about to say that you were about to defend. You had to defend like the idea of the age of consent.
No,
it could have potentially gone now, because I was going to ask, because like, well, I guess like one of the things that I remember when I tried to, when I was like working as a sort of proper journalist, and this was like around about 2018, 19, I did a bunch of like Bitcoin stories when it was like a lot more sort of popular and novel, but it didn't feel as chaotic as it sort of like did during the pandemic and now afterwards. But like my impression had always sort of been that like they like to sort of like buttress their language in sort of like financial jargon, partly because they're trying to convince people that like this is a legitimate or at least they used to want to convince people this is a legitimate financial instrument. It's kind of like, it's going to be like the future of currency, or it's going to be the future of commerce. The way that it's going to shape society is through that shift in commerce. But like the impression that I always got was always just like, your knowledge isn't really about the markets, it's about references. It's about like things that you've heard from other people who are also sort of like boosting Bitcoin, or at least sort of like ostensibly part of like whatever you kind of believe the Bitcoin community to be. And you know, you're sort of guided by like a type of libertarian politics, but it's still like the thing. My impression has always been that sort of Bitcoin communities, however you want to sort of define them, kind of are they find the references and they find the sort of internal jokes and the internal language to be a lot more important than like its actual utility generally. And it feels like that's only sort of gotten exaggerated over time, where it kind of does, you know, the fact that you're sort of talking to a guy who sort of introduces himself as like, yeah, I invented the Rare Pepe, or I sort of made the Rare Pepe meme go viral. And it's just like, number one, how do you even respond to that? But it's also just like, you are living in a different universe. You have a different epistemology, right? And it's one that is like impenetrable, partly because you would have to spend so much time, not just on the computer, but like in this very specific part of the internet to sort of even get a semblance of what you're trying to say. And I don't like, did you sort of get that impression during your conversations with people that you were just like, you know, you've been on the computer for so long, but you've actually sort of forgotten how to talk to someone normal?
No, I think, and I really do want to emphasize that like a lot of people were on the surface sort of like normal people. It was a lot of like dads. There was also kids there. Like there was like a kind of some kids activities going on. And actually the Rare Pepe artists, I had been told about them. Someone was showing me their art, and it was just sort of like Rare Pepe memes. And maybe I'm just a Philistine. I didn't particularly appreciate it as art. And I just got talking to these.
It's brave of you to admit that you didn't get it. I think that's
I was talking to these kind of older guys, and it became clear that they were like, oh, we used to do this art, and this is some of my art. I was like, oh, it's the Rare Pepe guys. And there was like, they weren't totally siloed from like normal conversation. I think they were both married. I think they might have had children. It was just, but like, it was like the frame of references they had. It was like a total parallel culture. And I suppose it's just like sort of the existence of NFTs to a certain extent. Like the culture is valuable because they say it is. And there is like this really siloed community that gives it value. Whereas me, complete outsider, I was like, I don't get that. It's like the Emperor's New Clothes. Like being like,
well, this is why I've often, especially as time has gone on, especially after the pandemic, the Bitcoin people should be thought of as members of like kind of a religion.
100%. That is such a big thing that came away from it. It's like it's a belief system. It is like
it's so hard to get to have a secular god for a sort of anti-state libertarian project. Because other than just God.
Yeah.
You know, but if you want to have an anti-state libertarian project that doesn't go all Waco, right, you're going to need some kind of central organizing focus of your beliefs. And with Bitcoin, for them, it's the concept of being able to apply a market exchange to anything and being able to say, well, if you imagine that there are zero transaction costs and zero institutions that would have to be, because imagine the traffic light thing, if that was just done with normal money, that would be, all of it would be crazy, but there would have to be banks involved in deciding who could drive when and where.
Stripe would have to be involved as well to handle payments, transactions.
Whereas, you know, the fantasy here is, oh, well, if you just just eliminate, the municipality, if you just eliminate the state, then you can imagine a world where public goods don't require a state to bring them into being because someone will think of something that uses an auction system to solve some problem.
Yeah. I really love this way of thinking because it's so like, I think you have to have a particular kind of brain disease to get into it, where like it's sort of like being like, well, what if you made a helicopter out of lead? And it's like, well, I guess you could do that if you really pushed science to its absolute limit, but like why? And it's like, well, why what if you had a banking system that didn't involve any banks or any central authority? I'm like, well, I guess you could do that, but then when you look into what it would involve, it's completely insane. Why is this the hill that you want to die on?
There was a presentation I sat in on from a man named the Renegade Investor, and he basically just listed, each slide was one of Britain's problems, and the ones from
what were the woes, please?
The welfare bill, housing crisis, illegal immigration, war that was a big one.
Oh,
war.
Which one?
War in general would be solved if Britain adopted sort of a Bitcoin standard. And I spoke to one of the organizers because I was trying my best to get on board with it. I was like, I'm trying to understand what the argument is here, but I came away from it and I was like, well, that just sounds like you're saying magic would fix it. Like, what are the you've not spelled out to me what the steps are that would fix all these sort of like global crises. And so they're so complicated. Everyone's trying to solve those things, right? So like, why is this the silver bullet? And I spoke to one of the organizers who told me that to truly understand Bitcoin, you need degree level understanding of 6 different disciplines. So I think his argument to me was, I haven't done the reading, which and I think that is actually like a semi-religious answer. Like if I said, for instance, like I didn't understand Judaism, someone might recommend that I've read the Torah. I hadn't like meditated enough on the scripture, and I thought it was such an interesting response to be like, because surely for like it's a financial mechanism that there's presumably quite a simple way to explain to an outsider who you're trying to get on board with your financial project and to convert, to spell it out in quite simple terms. And he didn't even try. It was like, it's on me to educate myself better.
The whole idea, and this is again of Bitcoin evangelism, because it is evangelical, like it's quite literally evangelical, is that if everyone believes and you register your belief in a market-based libertarian community by literally putting money into it, then everyone gets rich. Or everyone gets rich through the worth of their cryptocurrency, and the community thrives. But if people don't believe and they don't put their money behind it, then we won't get rich. And so it's like with so many of the sort of modern religions that have come out of Facebook, largely the emphasis, because with the sort of the thing that QAnon became, that set of beliefs, it's also I think is more of a kind of religion than a conspiracy theory, really. Again, it has these similar things of evangelism and belief and sort of the coming apocalypse, right? It might be more apocalyptic than the Bitcoin religion, but they're both sort of quite religious in tone. That all of it is about coming to that belief system and joining the community. Really, it's when they say do your research, what they really mean is become ready to become a member of the community, because there aren't a series of explanations really as to why Bitcoin fixes wars. But if we all believe that Bitcoin fixes wars and convince enough people that Bitcoin fixes wars, enough people will buy into Bitcoin, especially now at a time where Bitcoin is slumping, that we'll all stay rich again. We'll all be saved.
You could use Bitcoin to turn every traffic light in the Donbass red whenever a Russian tank turned up.
It's basically free market Mormonism.
Oh, God.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But there was also just the way I think it was much more ideological, monetary for these people. I didn't get the impression that these were like the big players. I didn't think this was a whale conference.
No, they were. There was an enthusiast conference.
Yes.
And I think, and there is like a difference between the two in the sense that like the people who are like the true believers in sort of like Bitcoin as sort of like a way in which they might be able to organize ideologically, or whether like some who sort of maybe see that there is a kind of like political potential to this. Like they are very different to like the finance guys who are sort of just maybe interested in Bitcoin largely just to sort of like make some money and maybe have a bit of fun. Like they're very separate entities. And like I was actually very curious about whether any whether that tension was evident in the conference. Like, are there people who are just like, this movement, or like, you know, the Bitcoin movement, as far as they can see it, has kind of been compromised or undermined by like people who weren't really in it for like the true belief of like a different type of future, but because they just sort of want to make money. Because like that's kind of what happened with, you know, a lot of the NFT guys kind of blame those types of people for like the reasons why NFT fail. And like whenever you have something like this, especially where like there's a high chance of failure, it's quite often that the people who are true believers will blame those who like aren't adequately like believing in the higher potential of whatever they sort of like are ideologically invested in.
Yeah, it was much more ideologically based. I would say, like you're mentioning the kind of the treasury, the Bitcoin treasuries there. I think largely the people at this conference would hate that. So that is not the spirit of what Bitcoin is. They're like, is it like are they Bitcoin originalists? Are they like, they're obsessed with the white paper and anything Satoshi said is absolute gospel? I think they see, I think it's very much, that's not in the spirit of what this is or should be. It is about breaking down financial systems and governments. Actually, the most kind of tension I saw was on a panel about education, and it was between, there was 3 speakers. One was a man named Coach Carbon, who I think just sort of like,
great name,
runs, my understanding of what he did was like, he just kind of teaches young people about Bitcoin in like a club maybe, or like he seemed like a sports coach as well. So
right, okay.
Somehow combining the two. One was a teacher whose name's Huxley, and I assume that's a pseudonym. And right. he runs like a Bitcoin club after school, and they have like a
I'll be home late, Mum. I've got after school Bitcoin.
What's it called? It's not a Bitcoin pickaxe. It's like, but it's like something that mines crypto in that club. Like, right. Whatever it's called. And then they also had a woman who is raising her children in a Bitcoin community in Madeira, where she's unschooling them. So unschooling is basically, it's child-led education. So the child decides exactly what they want to learn, and it's entirely at the child's discretion. And the parents
as long as it's Bitcoin.
I guess to a certain extent. But I thought that was an interesting tension, because like the woman who's unschooling her children was just like, take your children out of schools. They are teaching you. It is absolutely useless. Like, it's teaching them like government rot. And there you've got like someone employed to teach children. He's probably presumably likes his job and is kind of proud of things that he's done. That was probably the most tension between two people that I saw there. I think there was very much an agreement that like, we are all in this not to get extremely rich, but to change the world. Like, Bitcoin is the revolution and a solution.
I mean, I wanted, the unschooling thing was astonishing. I mean, from your article, you say Bitcoin bleeds into all kinds of disciplines. In one panel on education, I listened to a woman called Sylvia explain to an enraptured audience that she's raising 2 fiat-proof kids in a Bitcoin community in Madeira by unschooling them.
Yeah, that's right. They're Alfa Romeo till they die.
Yeah. So Sylvia and her husband Rob moved to Madeira 3 years ago. She's determined to raise her kids naturally. She tells me her kids never had nannies and that she breastfed one of them until they were 5.5.
Yes.
I mean, that's how you create a libertarian, isn't it?
Yeah.
You breastfeed someone till they're 5.5. You know, there's no other path for them.
Yeah.
I find, because her whole thing was raising children extremely naturally. And it's interesting, like,
what could be more natural than breastfeeding to 5.5?
And it's one of these things, it was like a if you know thing. And I was like, I don't quite understand how that intersects with Bitcoin. Like, or is it just that she happens to be breastfeeding her children for quite a long time and she lives in a Bitcoin community? But as a cohesive ideology, that's something that I'm not quite getting your head around.
So, I mean, look, there's so much of this sort of soup of beliefs in the conservative or sort of libertarian movements that are all about the kind of choice to reject social complexity because of some like primitivist belief that you have, right? I mean, it's the same beliefs that anti-vaxxers have, which is, I don't like this thing. I find it to be creepy, and so I'm going to say, well, we were fine when we lived in tribes.
That's exactly what Sylvia said to me.
Yeah.
We were fine. Well, breast milk was good enough for all of us, wasn't it? But our grandfathers used to have breast milk every night for tea.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sort of more exaggerated version of the belief that Britain was better when there was like rationing because everyone was friendlier, or all we needed is
under rationing your mother had 2 tits, right? One had milk in it and one had gravy. Yeah. and that was all you had until Sunday when you got a roast.
Yeah. But again, the belief that it's like, well, all of this social complexity I find to be sort of unpleasant and intimidating. I'm going to pretend that it's not necessary for any of the standard of living that I enjoy. I'm also going to pretend that like getting to Madeira without getting scurvy doesn't require this social complexity that I'm comfortable with, or being sustained on a pretty arid island in a large population with access to the internet enough to have a Bitcoin community. Doesn't require any social complexity that I'm uncomfortable with. But my child passing beyond my direct control into some place that I'm not in charge of, even if it's like, oh no, they just learn whatever they want. It's like, no, they're learning whatever they want, but in an environment where like they're highly structured by what I want, which happens to be mostly for them to not learn anything that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm raising them freak. While they're under my roof, they're going to be freaks. Yeah. And if they want to grow up normal, they can do that when they're 18. Okay, but under my roof, they're going to be fucking weird and off-putting.
So everything kids learn at school, you can learn outside school, she said, but not everything you learn outside school, you can learn in school.
Everything you learn at school, you can learn outside school, but not the school I run. Where they won't be learning any of that bullshit.
Yeah. Unschooling is simply living without schools like we used to live.
Yeah, literally, like in tribes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in like the 1700s. Because when you were 9, you went off and you worked in the clothing mill and you pulled out the threads from the steam loom.
Yeah.
It was better then.
You lost a finger and you couldn't do math.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
And you learned something.
Yeah.
Why do you need a finger if you're not doing maths? Well, you can't count. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then we made it the abacus and it was all okay.
Didn't even know he'd lost a finger.
So like all of these fantasies about decentralizing the financial system, decentralizing education, they're basically all just the same kind of nonsense primitivist desire to like escape the bits of social complexity you don't want. They're fundamentally conservative because they're about like attacking the roots of any kind of social organization that just happens to be the things that tend to make sort of crunchy hippie conservatives or like gold bug paleo conservatives, whatever, all uncomfortable. And they happen to be things like public health, often public education, public goods. That's one of the many fronts of wars on public goods. And so it's like there's so little difference between this and like Robert F. Kennedy basically saying, oh, we should go back to a version of the world where health is just not something people should expect. Or the charter school movement.
Americans have got to be getting breastfed. That's the way forward.
That's a guy.
You got to be suckling on your mother's tit.
Who'd support breastfeeding well into someone's 20s, I would suspect.
Late 70s. Yeah. He'd still be on it.
Yeah.
You can't trust these additives in food. You got to be getting it straight out of your mom.
It's the same as the raw milk people. It's the same as the raw water people.
Milk than straight out of your mum.
Well, quite.
Mum milk. We used to have proper breast milkmen.
That's right. And that was your mum.
Yeah. Rob got into Bitcoin 8 years ago, and he was educating me, and I was educating him about unschooling. We saw all these parallels about decentralized money and decentralized education and freedom. And freedom must be at the foundation of things. My children have been born into the real world, and they've been born into the real world from day one because they've also not in the Matrix. Because they've always been with me, with my husband, with our family, and with our friends. And so again, it's like always under my. It's these fantasies about retaining individual power from a complex society you don't understand by trying to withdraw from it. And this is the Bitcoin community in Madeira. This is also the people like, I don't trust pasteurization for some reason. It's the recursion to like medieval peasant mindset or the lifestyle of a medieval peasant because the modern world has become frightening.
I don't trust pasteurization, but only because I don't trust the French. I won't use anything invented by the French.
But another presenter that you discuss is, of course, probably one of Britain's most annoying comedians, a man by the name of
Milo Edward.
Yes, that's right. Dominic Frisby.
Excellent. That is his real name as well.
Yeah.
Made the inventor of the boomerang.
Dominic Frisby is a guy he didn't get radicalized really in the early 2020s. He was like a sort of gold bug, inflation obsessed public figure from the late 2000s. But back before that put you on like the wrong side of stuff like, probable belief in like vaccines or Q or whatever. I don't know what he thinks about these things, but you can see that a lot of his writing, he stops writing on like the Fast Show or whatever in the late 2010s and starts writing more and more about like, starts just doing a very serious Poe-faced documentary about Rotherham to go back to Rotherham from the beginning.
Well, this guy has to be pro-vax because he's regularly caught in the mouth of a dog. So, can't be too careful.
So Dominic Frisby gets on stage and he's, again, makes a lot of the quite standard claims about like the government is printing money and inflating away your wealth because somehow these people believe that it's important that like a time traveler from the 1920s should be able to like buy lunch with the change in his pocket. these strange beliefs about money.
Wait, what fucking king's on here? Hang on a minute.
There's a woman on this note.
Yeah. So
what's a shilling?
So he even writes comedy songs, does Frisbee. One called "We're All Far Right Now" was shared by Elon Musk. Again, "We're All Far Right Now" is, you can imagine the lyrics. I have listened to it. I have read them. It's basically just have you listened to it?
It's knees up, Mother Brown.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was going to be "Freeze All Right Now," but with the slightly awkward scanch.
No, it's "We're all far right now. We're all far right now."
It hits like every sort of Facebook comment bugbear, from like immigration to trans rights to everything. Of course, and now his pride and the greatest moment of his life, of course, is when Elon Musk then retweeted him.
His favorite song, apparently. That's what Dominic said to me. Is it Elon Musk's favorite song?
Elon Musk loves to put on right-wing English nationalist parody songs at his house parties that he throws, I'm sure.
But I think Dominic gave a presentation. It was kind of like just got a comedic presentation about Bitcoin and kind of the culture around it. And I think it was called like "Massive Foreheads" was maybe the title of it. And it was about being like, all these Bitcoin boosters have enormous receding hairlines, essentially. But he was the only one to kind of offer a critical eye over the chances of Bitcoin. As in, everyone I spoke to about kind of the dip in the market had been like, that's just what Bitcoin does. Don't worry, I've got more. Don't you worry about that. And Dominic was the only one to say there's been so much complacency in this market and that worries me. I think this could be the sign of something far worse for Bitcoin. He was suggesting, he's the one who kind of said like, this is evangelism. There is a belief system here. There is like people like to virtue signal about how much of a Bitcoiner they are. So alongside his like comedic enterprises, he has written a book about Bitcoin and sort of I've not read it, but other books about finance as well. And I thought it was interesting that he was the one person to point out the emperor's new clothes, sort of like needle the narrative of the conference. I thought was the only one was Dominic.
That's interesting. I also think it's quite interesting when a Bitcoin person says like, oh, there's a lot of complacency in the Bitcoin market, which like is true, but also like, what would not being complacent look like? Because it's just like a made up thing that only has money because a bunch of people believe, it has value because a bunch of people believe that it does. Like it's not like the 2008 financial crisis where you're like, well, they mismanaged the banks, like their balance sheets, like their risk ratios and stuff are all off. But in this case, it's just like, well, yeah, the only way to not be complacent is to be like, well, I shouldn't put my money in the fake money casino.
No,
like,
true.
Yeah, what does responsible Bitcoin look like?
Or I guess if I'd bought 10,000 for £1 today, I would be quite complacent about it.
Yeah.
I'd be quite.
It would have to go down a lot for you to make a loss. Yeah,
definitely.
Of course, he also had his branded mugs for sale.
Yeah,
as well.
A still from the video was available alongside his. He was signing books and selling these mugs alongside it.
He's got to do Frisbees, man. Come on.
Yeah, his notable singles, of course, include "Debt Bomb" from 2012, 17 million.
Debt bomb, debt bomb.
17 million fuck offs from 2018, the national anthem of Libertaria from 2018, "I'm Gonna Marry Gary" from 2022, "I'm a White Man and I'm Sorry" from 2022, "We're All Far Right Now" from 2024, and "Wrong Age, Wrong Sex, Wrong Color" from 2025. I think this is, of course, your standard evolution of your sort of garden variety libertarian sort of goes from debt bombed in 2012 to just adopting every single one of these sort of conservative Facebook bugbears by 2025 wholesale.
I really want to know what "I Want to Marry Gary's" about.
I mean, it feels like it does what it says on the tin.
It's just a love song. It's actually beautiful. It sounds like a Doris Day song.
Yeah. He's one of those like true old school libertarians where he's like weirdly progressive on gay rights, but like really, really anti everything else.
No. It's just transphobia. It's just a transphobic song.
Okay,
but it sounds homophobic, which I think is a branding issue for him. I think you need to be, regardless of the ideology of it, you've got to be clear about which group you're having a go at.
This is Dominic Frisbee's album "Anthems for the Excommunicated," which also includes "Lockdown Blues," "Arise Sir Nigel," and then the Libertarian Lord's Prayer. God, this guy sounds awesome.
The Libertarian Lord's Prayer. Goodness me.
Yeah.
The 17 million fuck offs one, he performed that. So that's like an anti-Remainer ditty. And I think he performed that at the party when they had they took up Trafalgar Square, but they had the countdown and the clock. I think he performed it there. So there's an audience for Dominic.
Yeah. And then you also, you met one of the artists. I always loved Bitcoin art. I've talked about Bitcoin art a lot on this show, of course, not even just NFTs, which were kind of created as a way to try to make assets that didn't require fiat currency to buy, and sort of that didn't work. And so a lot of Bitcoin art, they're usually it is the partners or friends of someone who did buy 10,000 Bitcoins for 20 cents and forgot to buy drugs with them in 2010 or whatever. And often it will just be a painting of the Bitcoin bee, or a painting of Calvin pissing on $1 or whatever.
I might surprise you actually. Should I show you an example of a Bitcoin piece of art, which shocked me, to be honest?
Oh, okay, it's provocative.
It makes you think. Look at that.
Oh wow!
Did show Hussein as well.
So it's like an octopus. It's an octopus with a big glowing brain. That's in the middle of $1.
Yep.
The brain is glowing orange, which is the Bitcoin color. So are they pro or anti-octopus?
Yeah, we've given this cephalopod a Bitcoin, and now it's more powerful.
And now it's running.
We finally unschooled this octopus.
That's right.
Now it's an investor in crypto.
Octopoders have spent far too long learning about things that other people want them to know about. The man, we're letting them learn about what they want to learn.
They've learned about stuff like how to change color to avoid predators, or fit into really small areas, or distribute problem solving across nerve endings in their tentacles. Cool. Real thing they do.
That is cool.
Hey, octopodes, you like to distribute your sentience across your sort of entire nervous system. How about you distribute the sentience of the world across a global financial system without anyone in control of it?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The artist of that piece is, it's also say the dollar bill that it's on has 0 in value. I think that's an important part of it.
Okay.
But modern political cartooning has absolutely lost its zeal for just slamming you with the point over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Political cartoonists now aren't labeling giant tidal waves the debt or whatever quite so often.
We've gone back to early 20th century or late 19th century style political cartoons where they're completely inscrutable. It's like the Kaiser chewing on a picture frame, and then there's a bear next to him that's labeled concerns.
Stuff like that. Yeah. I love dumb shit like that, which is why I love Bitcoin art in general, just because it's so because Bitcoin is just about constant evangelism. Any art made for, it's also why American Protestants can't make good art, because their main concern is we have to get more people on board with Protestantism. So all of this, this Christian movie we're making or whatever, should serve the goals of evangelism.
Yeah.
This Christian rock must serve the goals of evangelism. And so with Bitcoin, it's anything they do somehow has to center on the idea that fiat currency is worth nothing, that Bitcoin is amazing, that you can't trust banks, but that's a relative with Renaissance Catholic art, just portraying scenes from sort of the Bible, while sort of the painter implying that his patron is the devil very subtly or whatever.
I look at the tits.
Yeah. This is a huge opportunity for drama in there, because you're just depicting something. You're not really trying to convince anyone of anything.
Yeah, I think this is a Catholic one, because I thought it was actually kind of slightly touching, moving. The artist explained to me that he thought it was quite an optimistic piece, because he was like, if the forces of evil can produce that, imagine what the forces of good could make. But then I was like, well, you did make this up. You've not captured it's not like you're in Stranger Things and you've gone to the Upside Down and taken a photo of the big bad, whatever. You have invented this. This isn't a phenomenon that exists to make your point. You could equally have done an angel or a happy octopus or something
You could have painted an octopus at any emotional register.
And you've gone for you've created the evil thing, and you could also create the solution you've chosen not to, but you're presenting it as a lesson, a moral lesson. Which I thought was interesting.
It sort of reminds me of when I was studying the Medea, the Greek tragedy at sixth form, and I really hated this play because it has such a fucking stupid plot. And then I said this to the teacher. I was like, "This is such a dumb plot. It's so and she was like, well, it shows what people can be driven to do." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It's made up. You can make up anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't show anything at all.
Bitcoin's gonna fight this octopus somehow.
This octopus is really scary.
Yeah,
It really makes you think. That's one a world without Bitcoin would be. It would be this scary octopus.
It'd be this
with the glowing brain.
With a glowing brain.
And you know it's true because I've drawn it. So,
can you even imagine? Oh
God, everyone needs to get into more Bitcoin. Because that's the point of every Bitcoin thing is everyone needs to get into more Bitcoin.
Do you want the octopus to win, fellas?
Yeah, we all got to buy Bitcoin or that octopus is going to crush us all.
Yeah, and in a weird way, it's like very akin to sort of like this VAI stuff as well. Like, in that trailer, like looking at the comments and people like sort of sincerely saying, I know this is AI, but you can imagine what it'd be like if, it was like, I bet the reality is worse. Or like, you can only imagine what the real truth is like. It's like, no, like you're watching something that's like made up. You're watching something that is fictional. And your conclusion from that is actually it tells a deeper truth than the actual world that you live in. And like, I feel like, you sort of, when you sort of ask people about this, they don't quite know how to articulate it either. And really, I think it does come down to just this sense of just like people's belief, like, the sort of quasi-religious, occultish sort of qualities of these types of technologies, right? And like the ways in which they center belief and the ways in which they center like emotion and the way in which like they sort of try to convince the person who's like buying into it that like, the actual thing, the only thing you can trust is yourself and the only thing you can trust is your emotions. And don't think about like where those emotions are coming from or who's sort of like interacting with them or how they sort of interact with like you physiologically. Like, you just like rely on your gut feeling and that's it. And I do wonder whether like in some ways it's kind of a bit of a redundant activity to sort of ask people like, okay, why do you think that like the orange octopus kind of like presents like, I don't know, like an inalienable truth that you can't sort of determine from anywhere else? And it's just like, well, if they're not really thinking logically, they're not thinking right, they're thinking emotively, but so much of their emotion comes from like just this sense of like you've invested so much of your time and your energy and your belief into this like this theology and money as well. And so much of it is like theological and
but that money was worthless, whereas now they've got Bitcoin.
Right. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's amusing, but it's also very like, these are people who you can't, they're not coming back, or like if they are, like there really does have to be this massive process of like de-radicalization. Like, I don't even know if that's the right way to put it, but like you almost have to pull apart like the thought process that sort of leads to this sense of kind of unwavering belief. And that's incredibly difficult to do. And I don't, I think when so much stuff just comes crashing, I don't know what the sort of fallout is going to be, but also like I don't know how you sort of bring that many people back from the brink,
There was an interesting conversation I had, which actually this didn't make it into the article, but so this is a TF exclusive. I had a conversation with a guy and he was talking about the problem with sort of a national curriculum, and he was just saying, like they're teaching your children how to read or what to read and like what they're learning. And as someone who's like gone through a sort of national curriculum, although it was in Scotland rather than England, I obviously can't speak just for the English education system. Maybe it is appalling.
Curriculum,
absolutely.
Order,
but I was like, I don't really understand the issue with someone who's appointed to decide that your children should read The Great Gatsby. I don't know why that's bad. And he failed to articulate why he thought it was bad. And he was kind of just, and I could see him like the cogs turning in his brain. He's like, well, the government is bad, but that is an interesting point he's made about the merits of The Great Gatsby.
Well, all those children are going to, start relentlessly socially climbing, and then, they might end up wealthy but isolated.
Yeah, they're all going to move to West Egg.
Yeah, West Egg. The housing stock is going to be completely overrun by sort of British school leavers.
It's going to be unschooling, but you're learning about The Great Gatsby every day.
But look, I mean, it's the same thing of you want to think that you are so individual and so apart from society, this thing you think is something else and something threatening and social complexity, that the idea that everyone's kind of doing the same thing and that you aren't this heroic economic and political actor is one that you think with things like Bitcoin, this thing that is supposed to realign all social organizations along sort of voluntarist lines. You think you can do all of that to get away from ever having to be like anybody else, ever having to accept that you do actually live as part of a larger collectivity and you can't just ignore it. And the desire to ignore it is just an enormous ideological front on the anti-public goods sort of, let's say, sector who want to live in the William Rees-Mogg blood in the streets world, right? They want to be the sovereign individual that they fantasize about. But all of that is just, you keep taking off the masks and it's just ways to attack the welfare state, right? Because there always has to be enough society left that you have your internet connection for your Bitcoin. There always has to be enough society left that your wealth is safe or whatever. It's all this. I mean, I find it sad is, that these people are just like regular cryptocurrency enthusiasts, like the strategic Bitcoin preserve lady, unless she really is just there
hawking Bitcoin
products. Bitcoin marmalade. Is again someone they're the low level of that Ponzi scheme, right? They're the suckers.
I think there's an interesting lack of nuance in their understanding of these things. Like it's the broad strokes description. For example, someone told me about their aunt, who they said was 80, who they went to take $2,000 out in cash out of their bank account, and then had to go through like a 15 to 20 minute like check with like the teller, I guess, to make sure they weren't being like exploited or something like that. And I made that point to the person. I was like, well, do you not think the bank has like a duty of care to make sure this like old woman isn't being like stolen from? And he was just like, well, no, but it's her money. Like she should be able to just take it out. It's like, yeah, but you're living in a world where there are no baddies. Like it goes back to like the war thing again. Like the argument of like, oh, if the state doesn't exist and we use Bitcoin, then war won't exist. Well, you're completely you're disregarding the possibility that a warlord funded on Bitcoin who owns a private army could probably do quite a lot of damage in a world where we don't have a nation state.
I always want to know what the Bitcoin people's theory for fixing so-called wrench attacks is. Right? They said Bitcoin fixes everything, but Bitcoin brought wrench attacks, increased the prominence of wrench attacks. 100%. If you're listening, you know what that is. A wrench attack is a different sort of way to sort of steal someone's cryptocurrency. You could maybe like clone their wallet. You could sort of give them a fake wallet address, whatever. A wrench attack is just you hit them with a wrench until they hand over their cold storage and they give you their seed phrase. It's institutions don't always create problems. We know this. Everyone listening to this knows this. But again, it's like it circles back around to what is this? Well, it's just another tax protest and attack on the welfare state. And these people are just at a carnival celebrating something they don't fully understand. They say you need 6 degrees in different subjects to understand it. I think what that really means is they don't fully understand, but they believe.
Yep. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, and it was just like an interesting place to be. Like, it felt like kind of going on a religious pilgrimage and meeting sort of people, the true believers, seeing the people kind of. Do you guys know what Noster is?
No.
It's like, if someone who you use it listening, which I actually imagine there might be, it's like an open source, ultra secure Twitter sort of thing. And I really tried and failed to get my head around it 4 times, like prior to going to the conference, because there was like a whole event on Noster and I just couldn't wrap my head around it and gave up. But then I saw a wee girl who was with her dad on his phone and she was using Noster like she was born to it, which I guess to a certain extent she was. She's probably like, her parents probably had crypto when she was born, given like the timeline. And it's just
she's being unschooled on Noster, yeah.
But it's just like there's so many like trappings and traditions that we don't know about unless you're fully immersed. It was like the Bitcoin as religious tradition was my biggest takeaway. Like the devotion and like you're raising your children in this community.
We're raising them freak.
Yeah, exactly. They're the opposite end of the spectrum. They're like horseshoe theory for like being Amish, where it's like they're like a version of like the inverse of the Amish, where they're like everything has to be technological and every solution has to involve like the internet and like crypto and stuff. In the same way that like the Amish are like no technology ever.
Yeah. No buttons.
They're like perfect yin and yang. Like they would tessellate together.
Yeah, everyone's leaving sort of modernity, but in different directions.
Yeah.
Anyway, look. I think that's all the time we have for today. So I want to say to Ed, thank you very much for going to that Bitcoin conference. I'm sure it was very unpleasant.
I had a great time. I enjoyed it. I went for a magazine called Dispatch Magazine, and the article should be out this week, probably in a different form to what Riley read out, because they'll have saved my dreadful writing. So yeah, big plug for that. Thank you to them for sending me.
And thank you to you all, of course, for listening. You know about the Patreon. You know about a list of cities that Milo will inevitably read out.
Yeah. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, the day it comes out, I am in Bristol tonight. There will be very few tickets available for that, but there's probably some, so why not come? And also Bath on Wednesday night. And in the new year, I'm going to be in Paris, Luxembourg, Brussels, Rotterdam, and Amsterdam. And also I'm going to Belfast, Dublin, Cork, and Galway in January and February. So if you fancy any of those.
A long list of cities. I'm going to be in Berlin in January on vacation.
Hanging out. Not doing anything you can see.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Also back in Melbourne and Australia in April. So keep an eye out.
Do check that out. All right. All right. See you on the Patreon in a few days, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.